right, good evening, everyone. I'd like to call this meeting to order. It's 6 p.m., March 3rd, 2025, and it's our workshop meeting. Mary Ann, can I get roll call, please?
Mayor Young.
Here.
Vice Mayor Sartori.
Here.
Councilmember Brandon. Councilmember French.
Here.
Councilmember Painter.
Here.
Thank you.
Threw me off.
First item on the agenda today is the Utilities Department Capital Project Update and Planning.
Good evening. Marjorie Craig, Utilities Director. I also have Allison Felsberg, our new Deputy Director, here with me, just in case. And we worked on this presentation very hard, and we were really excited to be able to share it with you. So today, we have 4 things that we really want to go through. One is completed projects. We want to take a minute and just talk about what we've gotten done in the last few years. And then our planning approach for our path forward, moving forward, and a financial snapshot of where we are today, where we were at the end of the fiscal year last year, and where we actually are today, and then upcoming work that we have planned. So here's just a list. There's a lot on this slide. It's a list of projects that we've completed. They're fairly large projects. So we didn't include anything that was below $10,000, and some of them are quite large. So water main number 4 is complete, essentially complete, with the exception of the final restoration, the milling and paving. So the sign is gone, and we're looking at the last pay request. This goes through, we've got a $2.3 million worth of projects that we've done in the last few years, and some of them are smaller projects. But since I've been here, we started a very programmatic approach with a fire hydrant repair, service, and replacement. And on an annual basis, we look at which hydrants that we need to replace, and we're systematically going through. The stormwater projects, $1 million worth of work in the last few years. A lot of that is the pipelining. As you know, we've had emergent or almost emergency stormwater pipelining repairs. And that stormwater pipelining does renew that pipe for the next 20 or 30 years. So it's like renewing the pipe. Bioswale, we installed a bioswale with a $30,000 grant. The total cost of the project was about $79,000. So they're very expensive, but do provide some additional treatment. Water treatment system. A lot of the work that's been done is either related to our SCADA or Supervisory Control and Data Acquisition System, and that's the control system that allows the operators to see what's going on at the plant and out at the wells, and also to be able to control those systems. And also replacement of a pump at our reverse osmosis R3, which is our deeper well, for the reverse osmosis plant. So it's a upper Florida aquifer well. One of our team members, Juan, replaced or was actually able to do an in-house valve rehabilitation and saved the village $75,000. He's also going to be with Edison installing the new pump that we've just received at a cost of $75,000. So we do also look at where we can save money as well. So that's, and of course the storage tanks, you know, it looked like they look like almost brand new tanks now. So now we'll talk a little bit of our planning approach, our path forward. When Allison got here, I asked her to take some of the spreadsheets that I had done and make them much better, and talked about, well, this is kind of what I want to see. And we've put together several different spreadsheets. I say we, that's the royal we, that's Allison. And so this is one of them. This is the next 5 years, our project plan. And the project plan here, it's more than you can possibly read, but the intent here is to just see that we have a lot planned. So while most of the time we're looking at capital projects, the light blue projects are building maintenance projects, and the light green projects are operating costs. The dark green are equipment and O&M, and then the blue ones at the bottom are, of each year, are the capital projects, the ones that you're used to seeing. So we'll be updating these periodically for this fiscal year. For the fiscal year that's ongoing, we'll be doing it at least monthly. So this is just looking at this fiscal year and what we have planned, and there's a lot. But we're excited about moving forward with these projects. So we want to add this particular chart to the monthly utilities update that we provide, and with a comment section on kind of where we are and any delays that might have occurred. And you know, we're actually hoping that we can move things along faster than we have planned. So let's take a minute and talk about where we are financially. And I have good news. So at the budget hearing in September, this was a snapshot of where we were. We estimated that our beginning unrestricted net position was going to be about $9 million. Here's an estimate of our cash inflows, our estimated cash outflows, which are primarily either operating costs or capital costs, and then the estimated change in net position. And that's just what we're spending there. And so it was estimated at that time that we would have in our unrestricted net position, we'd have at the end of this year about $7.4 million. And that's kind of like your savings account, unrestricted funds. But this is where we are today, or actually February 14th. And I've worked with Jeff to come up with these numbers and to discuss what we have planned here with our path forward as well. So instead of the $9 million that we thought we would have, we actually have had at the beginning of the year $12 million. So that's about $3 million better than what we thought. And so our estimated cash inflows are going to be about the same. And our outflows, what we want to do now, and what we're planning to do, is to move forward with some of our projects. And what I mean by that is we're back on track financially. And what we have planned is we want to get back on track more with capital projects. So we're planning to move forward 2 of our capital projects that we had deferred because of the cost increases that we were experiencing. The first one is water main number 1, which is Tequesta Drive. And that project, you may recall, we bid 1 and 4 together, Tequesta Drive and Country Club Drive. And the bids came in at 60% higher than the engineer's opinion of probable construction costs. So that, along with the fact that they were just starting with US 1 Bridge, and Tequesta Drive is one of the main arteries, we deferred Tequesta Drive, and now they're almost done with the US 1 Bridge. We have more, money. We've caught up with our money financially, and we plan to move forward with Tequesta Drive. The second project is well number 19, one of our superficial aquifer wells. It needs to be replaced. And so that's estimated to cost $1 million. There is a little bit more. Our engineers have updated the cost for the filter plant replacement and the water treatment plant improvements. We've talked about how the state revolving loan, we did not want to move backwards and go with another facilities plan for the plant and risk not being funded at all. So we moved forward with our existing project, and we were funded with but $8.8 million, or $800,000. Oops. So Jeff took all the numbers and he provided an estimated 5-year projection. So what is that? What's the purpose of the slide? It's to show that, wow, you can't see it very well. I don't know what happened when it went to the presentation point. The unrestricted cash, if you could see this, shows that it's in, at the bottom line, that it's increasing every year. Okay.
And it's clear in our backup at least, so council.
It
can
is?
see it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. Okay, so the bottom line, it shows that we're still saving money and that we can afford to move forward with these projects. And then every year, we will revisit our capital projects, and if we need to move some more projects forward, we will do that. We just need to make sure that we retain the minimum reserve coverage in our unrestricted funds for our debt service. So
I'm
a little
sorry,
bit.
Can you put that back one? That note on the bottom about the reserve is one of my questions. I did not see that in the backups. There's 1.5. Thank you.
I added that to the slide because I thought you probably would want to know that.
That's
After-
one of my questions.
after
There
I
you go.
posted it, I'm
sure
like,
other council
wait a
members
minute.
might have that question
They're
too.
probably going to want to know how much do we need to have in
Thank you.
hand. So the next slide is about our upcoming work. So Allison did a nice job of putting together a project timeline, which is what I want to add to the monthly report and also to our website. And that way you can look at any time on our website and see where we are. This is done on a quarterly basis, so each of the squares is a quarter, so it's not a month. And we've done the best job that we can after discussing all of the projects to come up with our best estimate of the timing for these projects, and we're hoping that we can do some of them sooner. But we also can't predict any remaining supply chain issues there may be. I've seen across the state that those are lessening, except when it comes to electrical, instrumentation. There's still a lot of delays in that, and certain pipe sizes and fittings sizes. So I want to tell you that even though you haven't seen dirt moving on all of these projects, we've been still moving dirt behind the scenes on these projects and working hard to move them forward, whether it's working on the state revolving loan projects, grants, and the approval processes through DEP to get things moving. And we are ready to bid the filter media project, planning on bidding that next week. So with that, I don't want to move it too fast unless. With that, our goals, of course, are to improve our resiliency for now and to the future. These projects need to be done. As you know, the pipe projects have been planned for probably over 20 years. We're now starting to move forward with the projects, and we want to move them forward even faster. And we want to promote the safety and reliability of our critical infrastructure, but still being fiscally responsible. Do you have any questions?
Thank you, Marjorie. Council, open it up for discussion.
I have my brain here with me too, just in case.
I don't have any questions, but it was extremely thorough, both viewing it here and in our backup, so thank you so much for putting it together. I might come up with some questions as I hear things, but as of now, I got nothing. Thank you.
One comment, one question. First, I was at a homeowner association meeting earlier this evening or this afternoon, and they mentioned the great leaps and bounds of these internal projects and infrastructure that you've been a part of, that they've, residents who are watching these things have really paid attention to, and that you've done not only a great job executing them, but the flow of traffic and everything else that goes along with it, as well as budgeting. My question is, and I don't know if you just answered this but the 1.5 million in reserve is the minimum, but we're forecasted to even next year be well above that. What's the reason for that? Is there projects in hopes instead? Are these turning into investment accounts, or what's the point of going all the way up to 7 million as of 2030?
So 1.5 is a minimum, I would say. I'm a lot more comfortable with 2 to 2.5 coverage, but as any large amount becomes available, I'll be coming back to you saying, hey, we need to do these projects, we need to move forward with these. This is my recommendation. It's not, the nature of utilities is often you raise the rates, and so then you have more money, and then it starts to go lower and lower, and I'm not sure why it's showing the increase that way, except for the way the projects are planned, so we probably need to relook at that, so that we're not causing what you're saying,
Yeah, my only point is,
like a cash account.
Accelerate.
yeah, if there's 10
That's not the
million in there,
purpose.
that's great, but we want it back into our village, right?
Absolutely.
Okay, I
We
understand.
want it put back into the village, it will be put back in the village, and if we don't have any more projects to do, and we've still accumulating money, then we'll reduce the rates, right?
Understood. Thank
We-
you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Marjorie and Allison. At the beginning of your presentation, you talked about fire hydrant replacement. Is that just for the village of DeQuesta fire hydrants? Like when we do extraterritorial, are we responsible for those?
It's a good question.
Because we have it's about an equal amount of territorial and extraterritorial accounts.
We do. So the village itself is about 2 square miles, and our service area is about 4 square miles. And so those hydrants do include ones outside the village limits.
So we're responsible for the maintenance of those and the replacement of those. And we're also responsible,
are.
we're responsible for getting, like, if somebody came to us and said, a new development, we need water. It's our cost, or is it the developer's cost, or the neighborhood's cost to, if they said, hey, we need water, a new development's coming out?
So if there's a new development and there's no infrastructure there, then the developer pays for that infrastructure, and then they turn over the infrastructure to the utilities department, to the village, after the construction is complete. In addition, if there are any improvements to the system that need to be made as a part of that development, we put in place a developer's agreement. And you've probably seen over the years, 1 or 2 of those come before the village council for approval. And if sometimes the developer is actually building some of those improvements and turn it over, and they may take the lead and pay for it, and then we reimburse them for the village benefit. So their benefit, they pay for that, and if there's anything that benefits the village, then we pay for that.
Okay. So these extraterritorial fire hydrants, we don't see them on a daily basis because we're not out there doing our normal maintenance and things. How often do we go check on those, and what, how often, is it a regular basis? Do we just go once a year?
It's a regular basis, especially as hydrant meters are put in place. Like if a contractor needs to use water from a hydrant, we put a hydrant meter on there, and then they'll use water from there. We have, in the last year, looked at and maintained all of the hydrants within our service area,
Okay,
and planning on doing that moving forward.
good.
The fire department, actually.
And last question, this is great of all the projects we have planned. What do we see on an annual basis? Do you have a ballpark of like things that just come up? Where we would have to dip into some of those reserves that may be considered excess at the time. Do we is it hard to tell? Is there an average?
It is kind of hard to tell, but since I've been here, I've had to come before council on a few occasions and which you're probably recognizing, and had to say, this was not budgeted, and we really need to move forward with this project. If there's a hurricane, if there's an emergency, that's why I don't like to get too low on those accounts, because I want to make sure that we've got enough in case something happens. So there's always something that comes up
Yeah.
where I'm having to bring it forward.
Okay.
It's hard to estimate.
Yeah, but it's good looking forward to see what those numbers potentially could be, to know that those funds could be there if we had emergency projects.
We're always trying to do a better job of budgeting, and what I've encouraged our team to do is look at things on more of a programmatic basis. Since I've been here, like the hydrants and the valve replacement, they were already looking at it from the stormwater, also the water plant. So that new spreadsheet that you saw, that didn't exist before, because we're really looking at it, we need to pressure wash the plant buildings every year. We need to do, inspect different things. We want to maintain the scrubbers on an annual basis so that it doesn't, you don't ignore it and then all of a sudden it becomes an urgent or emergency.
Okay. And thank you for including that snapshot as well on a monthly basis on the dashboard. That would be very helpful, so.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Great job.
On the updated funds slide, those additional PAYGO recommendations, I mean, is that the ask? Are those gonna formally come to council at the next council meeting, or like what's the projection on those?
I know they're working on the bid documents that will go out, but they have to come to council for approval. And there'll be a budget amendment that comes along with those.
Okay. And then on the schedule projection, that's very helpful. And it looks like, as of now, the CIP projects for this year are intended to complete within the fiscal year, or is that accurate?
There are very few water plant or water utilities projects that usually can be done in 1 year. We will get them, we believe we'll get them bid. Most of them will be done within a year. I'm looking for that spreadsheet. It's kind of small. Yeah. We expect to
No,
get.
actually, they're going into 2026. That would be next fiscal year.
Yeah,
right? So-
that spreadsheet actually goes through 2027, I believe.
Yeah.
So,
And the spreadsheet's by calendar year, not by fiscal year, so it doesn't
Correct.
separate it by fiscal year. And
Here it is.
they're by quarters, not by months, too.
Yeah.
Which makes it a little bit
So yeah, so there's some budget for this year that are gonna roll into next fiscal year. And
Yes.
calendar year, both.
and possibly, right, yeah, exactly.
Okay.
So we can just take the filter media replacement, for example, and the membranes. So we have 6 filter vessels out at the water plant. And look, I get really excited about this stuff, so I'm gonna try not to bore you too much, but the 6 filter vessels are part of the superficial wells. We use the superficial wells to run through those 6 filter vessels. You can only take 2 of those vessels offline at any one time. So you can't do them all at once. And the same thing with the membranes. We have 3 treatment trains, and you can only take 1 off at a time. And you can't have the membranes offline at the same time you're doing the filter replacement, right? So Allison and I, and we've talked to the plant, how do we best sequence this so that we can move these projects forward and still maintain that operational flexibility, that operational continuity? So that's why it takes longer in some cases. So you don't want to be working on those projects at the same time you're doing your other water treatment plant project. We can get a bid. We know it's going to take time to get the equipment ordered for that large project. We know that. So we want to get in and out. We're hoping actually to shorten the filter plant project and the membrane plant project by awarding them all at once, rather than just 2. The way they were originally budgeted was 1 train, train 2, then train 1, and then train 3. We think we can get a better price by having all 3 trains together in 1 bid, and then sequencing them quickly. And the same with the filter plant.
Okay, so when we're looking at the numbers and the projections, so like, for example, the Beach Road water main, that was all budgeted, the whole project for this fiscal year, correct? So if it doesn't finish, then we have to do like a, what is it, a rollover PO or? So when we're looking at the numbers here, like all of any CIP project that was budgeted this fiscal year is shown on that fiscal year. Like we already have some that we know are gonna roll over to the next fiscal year.
So
And that
there's-
doesn't reflect that on here, right?
So there's two concepts. One is, have you encumbered the amount? So in what we do, we have to encumber the entire amount of the project when we award it. And so what happens is, as you go past the fiscal year, you have to roll that amount over to the next year. And so it may look like we're not spending the money or we're not doing anything, but we really are. It's just that's part of the procurement process in local government. And then the second thing is just the carryover or if you don't get a project bid or awarded or encumbered in a year, then deferring it to the following year.
Okay, no, and I totally agree, but so when we're looking at the projections though.
Oh, okay.
It's what's budgeted, right? So this will change when we know what projects are gonna roll over next fiscal year. And then the last question, which kind of piggybacks off what Councilmember French said, is I know the consultant's name's escaping me, but they did the 20 or 25-year study, which.
Kinley Horn.
No.
Raftellus.
Raftellus, yeah.
Oh,
What is it?
Raftellus, yeah.
Raftellus.
Raftellus. So they did the study for us, which in turn, you know, had us do the fee structure and then the additional, you know, monthly capital charge. And I know we might have to pull the minutes or look at the video, but I know we agreed at some point if there was like an overage in funds, right, we have too much, or if there wasn't enough, that we would revisit with the consultant. So are there, right now, I mean, I don't know if we agree to do that in 5 years, or what would be the plan, like you said, if we are kind of seeing either direction, that we might want to revisit it.
If I can just interject first, so this is like the step one to kind of get us back on track. We had a couple of deferred projects. You know, the capital charge has helped us. We've seen some additional revenues. We didn't have as much expenditures. So part of it was getting back on track. We have 20 years worth of projects that we've done a study for. So just because we haven't projected it out 5 years first, we're going to move a lot of projects forward. We also have a couple forces working against us. We're still working through PFAS and what we're going to do for that. There could be some significant charges. I know we're okay right now, but the state seems to, and even the federal government seems to still be playing with that. I mean, we'll see. As you guys know, from the state standpoint, we may be losing a significant revenue if they keep playing with the surcharge of the extra territorial charges. So this is the first step. You'll see $7 million, but we're gonna update the plan and we'll bring you guys back a better projection long term. But that has always been the plan. If we can reduce that capital charge, we will do that. We did not agree upon a time that we would do that, but you know, at that point, a year and a half ago, we were, you know, we didn't see the light at the end of the tunnel. So I think we're doing better now. We're projecting. We obviously, you know, from my standpoint, I think we're doing a better job of going to try to track these projects, and that'll help us long term look at what we're doing. So I didn't, maybe long-winded version of, yes, we can look at that capital charge, but let us stand everything up and make sure that we're going in the right direction. You know, these projects that you guys have seen tonight, I mean, you kind of touched on it. I mean, a couple of these projects are 18-month projects, and they're not. So you see it in this budget year as $3 million, but it's probably going to roll over into the next year, maybe even the year after that. So this is kind of a long-term approach. This is the first step in that.
Okay, thank you. All right, any other questions, council? All right, any public comment? All right, thank you, appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, agenda item 2, a Public Works Department annual update on our roadway and sidewalk improvements. Doug?
Good evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor, Village Council. Have an opportunity tonight just to share with you our upcoming roadway and sidewalk projects scheduled in fiscal year 2025. I will be bringing this to council for approval for the road work next month, and possibly the month after that for sidewalk improvements. This is the basic road assessment map that we use as a guide each year on an annual basis throughout the year, and then at least once a year we go out and we look at all the roads throughout the village, and we determine which roads require improvements. There are a lot of factors that determine that based on traffic volume, the age of the road, the last time it was resurfaced. Throughout the year we're impacted by underground utility projects, whether they're lining projects or stormwater or water distribution failures. And so this is pretty much our guide, but on an annual basis that may change. So for instance, if you look down at the legend at the bottom, in the fuchsia color, Area 1, those roads have been completed. We've milled and paved those over the last few years, and we've now moved into Area 2. If you look over in the Country Club, as most of you know, we completed road improvements in the Country Club last year in both Areas 1 and 2. We didn't complete Area 2. And as much as we'd like to stay in Area 2 and possibly, complete all of Area 2, there are things that don't allow us to do that. For instance, on River Drive, there's a lot of new construction. There's also Loxahatchee River District has some failures that they need to address, or potential failures they need to address. And we also have some stormwater projects on River Drive that need to be addressed before we're milling and paving. We never want to mill and pave a road and then we have utilities coming after we've already fixed the road and they're tearing up the roads again. So for the most part, when they do go in there, we require an open cut. They open cut the road. They make their repairs. They repair the base rock. They're required to provide density reports on the compaction, and then they temporarily fill in the pothole, right? They fill in the asphalt. After that, the requirement is that they then go back and mill and pave 25 feet in each direction of that open patch. I'll tell you, in years prior, a lot of contractors that were in the village did not do that. They'd open up a road, they wouldn't provide any densities or any base rock. They'd throw some asphalt in the hole and they wouldn't mill and pave. We're holding them accountable to make sure when they come into the village requester, they're following that protocol and those specifications. So in fiscal year 25, and I'll be bringing this to council this month, matter of fact, we will be, let me jump ahead here, we will be moving to Area 2 in the Country Club. We are going to be milling and paving Fairway East and West. There are some open cuts and some repairs that need to be addressed first before we do that. So that will be the first area that we will go to. Also, while we're in the Country Club, if you recall, there were some manholes on Gulfview Drive that need final adjustments. So the challenging part on Gulfview Drive was trying to rebuild the crown of the road. And so when you're rebuilding that crown of road, you get the water off the road, right? If you have water sitting on the road, it's going to deteriorate your road. So you want to get that off the road. So there's a few things that impact that, right? Over the years, people redo their driveways, right? And when they weren't necessarily following a specification or a detail, they build the driveway however they want. They put pavers in, they put asphalt in, they build out to the road, there's no swales. So we tried to make sure we rebuilt the crown of the road to push that water off the road onto the properties, right? And the challenging part is you have driveways now along the road that go up and down, right? And now we're trying to rebuild the crown of the road, and what we have to do is that asphalt has to meet the driveways. So some of the manholes we were able to adjust, but some of them were so bad that we had to leave that and just make sure we fix the road and come back now in coordination with Loxahatchee, and we raised the collar on these manholes to meet the final road profile. So we'll be doing that on Gulfview Drive. I know several residents have reached out to some of the council members, and they've also reached out to us, and they know we're coming back to fix these manholes and make these adjustments. After they finish in the Country Club, we will be moving over to Bayview Estates. There are a lot of open cuts and repairs over the last couple of years in Bayview Estates, not only from our stormwater department, but also Loxahatchee River District. All the repairs are completed in that community, and we're going to get in here now and mill and pave the rest of the road. There are a couple open cuts that we're going to make sure we open up the road, make sure we have the proper densities, and then come back and mill and pave. After that, we're going to move ahead to Tequesta Pines. And the goal here in Tequesta Pines, there are many deficiencies in the roadway in Tequesta Pines. We had a lot of stormwater failures in Tequesta Pines, as well as Loxahatchee. Excuse me. Our department has gone in there. When Matt was here, you might recall, lined a lot of pipe in Tequesta Pines. And Loxahatchee River District is continuing to improve their system, lining their pipe, making repairs. It's not only on the mains, but a lot of the lateral pipe. So what we want to do is go in there where we can and stay off the main road right now, but mill and pave all the bump out roads. So right now we have Buttonwood Circle, and then Pine Hill Trail, which is not southwest of Riverside Drive, but west of Riverside Drive. Beechwood Trail, both sides of Pine Hill Trail West. Chestnut Trail, all of Chestnut Trail, and also Cedar Hill Lane. Just to go back here, that just shows as far as the driveway aprons, this is a perfect example of, I'm sure you see it out there, where the driveway doesn't meet the road. If need be, and when we're repairing that crown of road, if it does not meet the driveway apron, we have funding available budgeted to repair the driveway apron. And we've done that where we need to. We take out the apron and we bring that apron up to meet the crown of the road, and we follow the standard driveway apron detail. And we stay in the right of way. We don't go on private property, so we'll make that transition throughout that right of way to the road.
Can I interject something real quick? Because I think you've kind of passed over it a couple times, but we've talked about when it starts raining, we get customer concerns or residents' concerns about that water sitting in the roadway. But what Doug is talking about, building that crown of the road, the water's supposed to go in those swales on properties. But what's happened over the years is those property owners, or through, I guess we'll say, attrition, those swales have deteriorated, and now we don't, the water is sitting in the roads. And so we've really tried to address it. The stormwater fund doesn't have a lot of funds to go rebuild those swales, but that's what we're dealing with. We're trying to work on a program, maybe incentive program, to help build some swales back. But I think it's a combination of stormwater and roads conversation, but I know we talked about it in the previous storms too, but just kind of wanted to highlight, that's our major issues with some of the, we'll say, flooding. I mean, the water's not on people's property, but it's sitting on roads or sitting in front of their house or in their driveway. It's because we don't have those swales anymore, and so we have to work on an approach to try to bring those swales back. Sorry, Doug.
No, that's a great point. That is challenging, and where we can, if we have an opportunity to go in there and rebuild the swale to meet our standard swale detail, we will do that. I don't know if anybody noticed on Point Drive, we just repaired the road there, and it was exactly what I'm talking about. The road, the water's just sitting in the road and it's just eating the road apart, but it can't go anywhere. And so it's a combination of rain, irrigation, it sits in the road. And so we went in there and we redid the swale in front of Whitehall condominiums, built a nice swale there. The water rolls off the road, and we fixed about 100 linear feet of roadway in front of the Pines, not the Pines, Whitehall.
I know a couple of projects that we're looking at that's been issues, like Yacht Club. We got some stormwater over there that's been sitting over there. We're gonna do some work with the swale. Part of the issues, and then I think North Dover was an area that's been brought up, and I was out with our crew a couple weeks ago looking at some of these projects that we're going to try to get fund this next year. We'll talk about the strategic planning part, but part of the issues, I mean, people have trees or hedges in the right of way in the swale, so it might be painful. I mean, telling customers that if you want this water out of the road, we need to take your bush out or hedges out in order to take back our right of way. It's our right of way, and so it's gonna be, we'll obviously have, kid gloves on and do our best, but it might be painful. So just be prepared. We'll have those discussions. Everybody will know when it's coming, but there's a couple projects that when I was out there, we're gonna have to remove some hedges or, maybe even a tree or two, to make those happen. So, but it's important for the safety of our village and obviously our infrastructure. So just, sorry, went off topic again.
That's good, yeah. Ideally, when you're talking about improvements and piggybacking on what the manager's talking about, we talk about this regularly, you really want to take back the right-of-way. When you're building a project, you want to go from right-of-way to right-of-way, right? So if you're just going there and you're just addressing the road, have you really fixed the problem? So, yeah, there are a lot of homes that were developed years ago that they didn't have any swales. They built the road the property like this, and just to push it into the road, and hopefully it flows down the road. So there were no swales. The good thing is, we're stepping into the sidewalk capital improvements now, and we get applications all the time, people redoing their sidewalks, new development, redoing their driveways, and so we make sure when they're redeveloping that they're putting in the swales, right? So, yeah, it's step by step, a few houses at a time, but it adds up. And then a lot of times the neighbor will come out and say, "Oh, what happened over here? They're pushing all the water onto my property now." So, you have to handle that carefully with the residents, but when they can understand what you're trying to do and how it helps overall of not only retaining the value of your property, but improving your property, improving the roads, and maintaining the roads. We don't want to come back and pave these roads in 10 years because you have water sitting on the roads. So it's challenging, we can't, so let's say somebody's redoing their driveway, and I'm out there going over the detail with the resident, and we cannot technically insist that a resident builds a swale on their property. But we make it very clear that when they build a swale in the new driveway apron, we're gonna pitch it to one side, right? And we follow the road profile. Whichever way the road is draining, that's the way we pitch the swale in the driveway. And it's simple, it's really a simple process of either they do it themselves or they hire a landscaper, and they split their grass in the middle of the swale, they peel it back, they dig out their dirt, and they lay the grass, lay the sod back down. And that'll take the water out of the driveway. We get a lot of calls from residents that the water's sitting in my driveway apron, especially after they redo their driveway. And they're missing that extra step in just putting the swale in the grass, right? So that's something I think a lot of residents are getting better at, but when we're out there, and I know the Stormwater Department does the same thing, we're continually educating our residents on what they can do to help the whole area, the situation. So as we step into our sidewalk capital improvements, we had Palm Beach. So we have traffic signalization on Tequesta Drive, and Palm Beach. We have an agreement with Palm Beach County where they maintain the traffic signals. So we have one at Riverside Drive, Seabrook, County Line Road, and then also US 1. So they're responsible to maintain them, but anytime that we have any deficiencies, any repairs that are needed, or if we go in there and we're cutting the road, or contractor's cutting the road, and we cut the loop switches in the road, we're responsible for the cost to upgrade signalization, and we're responsible for those costs, right? So the county was contacted by somebody in the community who's visually impaired or visually blind, and now the county contacted the village, contacted myself and the manager, and the county's going to go install audible devices for folks that are visually blind or impaired. So it's an audible beeping sound that helps them navigate to the crosswalk push button, and then it has a sound that tells them when they can walk. So the county just is not 100% done at Old Dixie and Tequesta Drive, but they have most of the infrastructure in there. And they actually picked up the cost for that. We could have been responsible for those costs. They pay for all the costs at Old Dixie. Now they're going to move to Seabrook and Tequesta Drive and do the same thing there. So we're going to be responsible for those costs, and that's coming out of the capital fund. That's in the neighborhood of $37,560. That'll come out of the capital fund. So we should see them out there. We've already issued a purchase order, and we'll start moving forward with that. We currently have $170,000 for sidewalk improvements this year. And after the county finishes, I was going the wrong way here. This is basically our sidewalk assessment map. And all the areas in green have been completed. The only thing you don't have on there, which has come off the map, all of Country Club Drive, all the sidewalk on Country Club Drive was repaired in the last few years as well. So in fiscal year '25, we are going to work on repairing, replacing sidewalk on Riverside Drive, on the north side of Riverside Drive within the village limits, and then Tequesta Drive from Mars Avenue to US 1. Not all of it is in need of replacement, but there are some sections that are only 4 foot wide. Although that's ADA compliant, it does not meet the village code. And so we will expand that sidewalk to 5 feet. And again, not all of the areas need replacement, but after we finish the Seabrook modifications, we will get as far as we can on both sides of Tequesta Drive to US 1. And just to step back, I didn't give you a price, even though I know it's in your agenda. We have $710,000 budgeted and approved for road improvements this year. And I have a proposal from Win & Sons Construction. That's the Palm Beach County contract that we're piggybacking. We have a proposal for $688,861.35. And my goal is to spend all of it, take it as far as we can, repair as many roads as we can. I don't like to roll money forward. If the money's there, we're going to use it. And that item will be coming to you at the next council meeting for your review and approval. And I'd like to say we had more projects to do, but you know, this is the money that's available. And I think many of you know that a lot of the money for these projects comes out of the infrastructure sales tax that will sunset this year in 2025. So I know in this budget season, the manager and I and Jeff will be talking about how do we keep this moving forward and where does the money come from so we can continue this. I know the residents, when we get out there, are ecstatic about this. Very happy to see this, and so we want to keep it going. That's all I have, unless you have some questions.
Thank you, Doug.
Yep.
Council, I'll open up for comments, questions.
One quick question, Doug. Maybe I missed this, but so go back to the swales real quick. I think you said it is highly suggested that if someone's like doing work on their property, that they improve the swales. Is there a certain point, like I noticed on River Drive, there's a house that just did a total re-landscaping. It appears that they've redone their swales. Is there a certain like threshold, like if they're redoing their driveway, redoing their landscape, where they're being required to update the swales?
If they're taking out the landscaping in the front, that'll require a permit, and they'll have to put a swale in.
Okay.
If they're just focused on replacing the driveway, you can't tell them that they now have to build a swale. You know, again, it's village property, right?
Yeah.
So
Technically.
most folks, you know, you maintain it, right? You all maintain your property to the road, and you feel like, hey, that's my property. It's technically not your property.
Mhm.
It would be no different than going over your neighbor's house and saying, I'm gonna put a swale in over here. It's not your property. So, yeah, it's challenging, but it would be nice to say, you're replacing your driveway, well, build a swale as well. But,
Yeah. Okay.
you can't do that. That's actually written into the code as well.
So if they were replacing like their sod, ripping out all the sod, for instance, that would trigger.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Good to know. Thank you. That was a
You're
really
welcome.
helpful presentation. That's all I got.
Going back to the color chart, which I was here when you first created this, and it was the most exciting thing for our little village.
It's a lot of colors.
So my
on that
fellow
chart.
council members that maybe didn't even live here a couple years ago, the village, before Jeremy and all these fabulous people here, they used to just fix things as they would break. And then you would get, oh, it was a nightmare. So having these plans, and same thing with like utilities, just having those kind of an estimate of what's gonna be bursting and fixing it before it actually pops. So just to confirm, the area 2 in green, we're gonna jump past some of it and start in yellow. just because there's the complications on part of the green, correct?
That's correct.
Okay.
Yep. Yep, even on Country Club Drive, all the,
I understand why, I just wanna make sure I
Yeah.
fully understand that, so when I tell people,
yeah.
right.
Yeah, when we put this together, or I'm planning for either this fiscal year or the following fiscal year, I sit down with Marjorie and take a look at her plans and the work that she has coming up, and then also reach out to Loxahatchee River District, and they give me their look ahead, their 5-year plan, and what they, and obviously their plans change as well, depending on what's happening with their system. But we use that as a guide. You know, we've done some nice work in the Country Club. I know River Drive, there are some pockets in there that are really bad. And there's one down by your house, Mayor, that I know David is planning to have that road open, cut, and fixed there, just past your home there. That's a significant
Yeah.
bump in the
Everyone
road.
probably bottoms out at that,
Yeah.
that dip. It's really bad.
The good thing is, though, you know, I spent most of my life in 25 years in construction in New York, and so, you know, when we talk about roads and how bad our roads are in really good shape. You know, I know we want things at a certain level, but our roads are in really good shape, and we stay on top of that. You know, these are the capital projects that we bring forward, but myself and the crew are out there all year long, fixing potholes. You know, matter of fact, there's AT&T just put in infrastructure by Bermuda Terrace and Bayview, and when they bored under the road, the bore came up, and they put a little bump in the road, a little speed bump. So I'll be bringing to the manager a permit and a purchase order to open cut the road and fix the road. But you have to watch these people. They're out there all the time, and all of a sudden you find a hole in the road, like, who's potholing the road here? You know, and they put a little patch over it and they're gone. But, you know, it was pretty obvious to see that bump in the road. So they'll open cut the road, they'll fix the base rock, they'll provide the densities, they'll put a temporary patch, and they'll go back and mill 25 feet in each direction. So that's coming up in the next month. But again, we're out there all the time. We get calls from residents, whether they live in a cul-de-sac, doesn't matter where they live, we get out there, we fix it. We just fixed a couple potholes over on Chapel Court, Chapel Lane. And so, you know, some of the road, you know, you're always gonna have, what I would say is aesthetically, sometimes if you're actually walking out of the road, you know, you'll see all the hairline cracks in the road. And that's a product of living in Florida, living on top of the water table. You constantly have the water table pushing up on your road, the sun baking down on your asphalt, and you get that reflective cracking that comes from your base. You can't, the only way to get rid of that is to replace your entire base and your entire road. And now you're talking about, you know, tens of millions of dollars. We're not gonna do that. So the way we're going now, we're getting a very good product from our contractor, Win & Sons. They are one of the better contractors around. They continually win an open, competitively bid process with the county. I believe it's almost 5 years now. We've been piggybacking on that contract, and it's been constantly renewed. And so, you know, the last, you know, you all live in, some of y'all live in the country club community that was extremely challenging. You know, there's one main artery, you know, in and around the loop there, and people do not like to be slowed down. And but for the most part, you know, we did what we had to do to get it done. In hindsight, you know, we had a debate. I had a debate with the contractor. I did not want him to open up the entire road. I thought that was too much for him to handle, and so valuable learning lesson for him. He's not going to do that again, because he had to do a lot of extra work at his cost to fix that road once he took off the top layer of asphalt. And now you had rain. He didn't expect the rain so soon. He didn't expect that many rain. We went through 2 little mini storms while that road was opened up. So it won't be a debate next time. You're not going to open up that much roadway that it's just impossible to maintain, especially when you have weather impacting what you're doing.
The aprons on the driveways, when you have to redo them, is the response accepted, or is there pushback from residents?
When we're gonna pick that up? No, the residents like that.
Do we match what they have? Because obviously some of the newer ones that don't follow the rules and put a swale in, a lot of times it's not just the concrete. So do we match that, or do we?
No. So
No.
thankfully.
Because I know on Country Club, we had that conversation for the sidewalk. I was curious how
Yeah.
it's going for regular driveways.
It's actually a really good point, because thankfully, we haven't had a lot of folks that have upgraded their home, and maybe they have. So wherever you don't have sidewalk, they can build pavers to the road. Where you have sidewalk, pavers are permitted from the sidewalk to the road. But for the most part, a lot of those driveways are older, and there's been 2 or 3 layers of asphalt on top of the road that's been built up. And then in the middle of all of that, they redid their driveway, and now the elevation doesn't sit right, and here we come, take all those layers of asphalt off, and now the apron's too high or too low. So a lot of those are the older homes and the older construction. But I imagine at some point, we may come across somebody that has, at the most, put some decorative pavers there, that if we have pavers in those sidewalk, we'll put the pavers back.
Okay.
But anything other than the pavers or the concrete, we won't do anything
Gotcha.
more than that.
Regarding swales as a whole in the grass area, not just the driveways, I want you guys to know I fully support that when it is capable, because just seeing the changes over the last 15 years, and I will throw my own property underneath the bus. I'm pretty sure my swale is non-existent anymore, just from natural filling in,
Yeah.
from weather, and I'm on a corner, so the water flowing down around the corner has probably pushed dirt and whatnot, so I could see, I don't have water issues now, but I could see why I would probably need to maybe have a swale dug back out to collect the water. Also, to support staff and council members who get phone calls, it does seem to be the root of the problem of where the water needs to go. It needs to go somewhere. And it's not the hurricanes that frighten me, it's the tropical rains, because that's where we get those floods.
Yeah, there was actually one resident on Gulfview Drive,
The Blue House.
and I don't recall if it was blue, but there was one homeowner that had substantial water now pooling in their driveway that they didn't have before.
It's like almost
you know,
to the
where Maybe it
garage.
came up 3 feet, now it's up 5 feet.
Mhm.
And so, they're gonna have to do something
And
with their
some
driveway
of
as
us,
well.
we're the older homes, and we have the newer homes at the new height code and elevations, and yeah, we older ones get all the dumping. So I completely understand where you're going with the, how do we kind of reconstruct a lot of the natural swells, especially for the older properties that are surrounded by newer properties with the higher elevation. I fully support you in trying to figure out where to put this water. Obviously, utilities department is trying to do their part, making sure the system can handle stormwater. How do we figure out how to balance that? And then it'll remove a lot of the issues for residents.
Yeah, even though my jurisdiction in Public Works is not on private property, I know in working with Marjorie and Wayne in the building department, although the houses may be at a higher elevation, they have to maintain their water on their property. But when you get out to the right-of-way where we are, that's where you're moving water now, off the property and down the road, or it's moving towards your neighbor's house that you just referenced. So it sort of forces somebody to do something at
So
some point.
I want you to
And
know I
again,
get
it's-
it, I support you guys, what you're trying to do. I like that both departments, you guys are trying to work together,
Yeah.
just so our infrastructure matches each other and it supports each other, as far as the mechanics.
Yeah.
Got one comment, one question. I think a byproduct of the great roads and sidewalks are my kids are more likely to use the skateboards and bikes on our roads, especially the sidewalks that you've repaired. So thank you for that. It gets them out of the house, gets the energy out, and it's a great thing for our neighborhood.
Yes.
The other question is, when we have areas like Bermuda Terrace, Palm Beach County owned, do they have, or are you aware of their timetable on replacing their roads? And do we get a lot of calls from those residents, maybe in complaints about their roads, not realizing that they're not Village of Tequesta?
Yeah. The county sends out their 5-year plan. Matter of fact, we just got it, the mayor just got it, I think Friday or over the weekend. And so we'll go through that. I was surprised to see none of the roads that we requested are on the 5-year plan. So I'll be talking with David Ricks about that. He has another fund that may come out of, but I'll find out what's happening with that. But to answer your question, they do provide the 5-year plan. And you'd be amazed how many phone calls we get on a weekly basis from people that don't necessarily know where they live or where they pay taxes to. And so, yeah, we get those calls about their road in Bermuda Terrace or a little pocket here, and I said, well, you're in unincorporated Palm Beach County, or you actually live in Martin County, or you live in Jupiter. Well, we get those calls every week. And we're helpful, you know, we'll give them a phone number and a department to call someplace else, and we try to tell them, you know, I don't pitch as, you know, like the manager might, but I do bring up annexing and how nice it would be to come, you're here in the village, you know, why don't you come into the village? And the first question is, well, what's the benefit? I said, we have a lot of benefits, and I send them over that way. So,
Doug,
Thank you.
thank you for this information. One question on the sidewalk, maybe its own category, extension. You know, North Dover starts at Cuesta Drive, and sidewalk just terminates about 6 or 7 houses in. Is there
Yeah.
any thought to, or is we ever going to extend that down towards the Constitution Park? And the reason I bring that up, and it's multi-layered, and a lot of it's public safety, with the proliferation of these e-bikes, that is a main, and that's the number one source of complaints I'm getting right now is from, and I think the village as well, right around North Dover and Short, right around over there. You've got e-bikes. When we have 6 months worth of food trucks and things like that, that is a very walkable street. And with these e-bikes and just traffic, are we going to extend that sidewalk down to Constitution?
that is a very interesting area, and I'm glad you brought it up. The manager and I have been talking about Dover for the last year and a half, and that is an ideal location for a complete street project, right? Where we take back our right-of-way to right-of-way. We build swales, we build sidewalks. I know the manager and Jay and myself have been talking with folks from the Planning Association in Palm Beach County and different things we can do in the village for connectivity. Not only does it dead end on Dover, but also Evergreen and Short, and you have a little stub of sidewalk. And sometimes they did that when they were building models, and they just put on a little strip of sidewalk and they never finished the whole block. But yeah, that's a real important area. It's very active with a lot of folks walking to the park, and now they'll be coming around trying to go to Remembrance Park.
Yeah.
So that connectivity is a classic location, an example of where a complete street should go.
Good.
And what it should look like. Maybe one side of the road for e-bikes, right? And scooters, and maybe the other side for pedestrians. However you work it, or maybe if we take back the roadway, we can put a little median in the middle of the road. But something like that, when you're championing a complete street project like that, you can go and try to get funding for projects like that. When you're just milling and paving a road, right, where you're just replacing a sidewalk, it's very, very difficult to get any. You're going to spend more money trying to chase a grant than be successful getting grant funding.
So
right?
more to come. Perfect.
But a complete street project, you put those in the pipeline with Palm Beach County, and, you know, your funding may be in 3 years or 2 years, you know, it depends how many projects are in there. But that's a perfect example and a great location of a complete street project.
Awesome.
Now, you might be happy with that if you live there and say, take back the right-of-way. But it's very interesting when you have these conversations, the folks that live over there are very happy to make that a complete street because they're going to walk down there. But if you live on that road and you feel like that's your property, right? We get very attached to our property, right? I'm no different where I live, right? It's my property, I maintain it. No, it's not your property. And so folks are walking in the street, and now you have a swale, and you have sidewalk, and now your front door is over there, and now folks are over here,
Yeah.
walking past your front door.
So a couple of things that we're doing with that, and I'm gonna relate it to El Portal, and I got here in 2019, which I know they were getting complaints before I even got here. You know, the first step was, you know, it was a big ask and be a lot of money, was let's go see if we can get some money to do the project. And so that's kind of where we are with North Dover, because the ask is so big that if we do that, we do nothing else. So we're looking for money. I think, you know, with that project, I think there's a lot of benefits, and obviously I know, you know, the connectivity, that'll be part of the mobility plan, but I think, you know, what Doug was saying, we do have that as part of our plan. I know with sidewalks, and this is a sidewalk conversation, you know, unless council pivots, it was always, let's maintain what we have, let's try to fix what we have first, and then we'll look at expanding. But Dover kind of fits into another little box where we're looking at a complete project, so.
Okay. All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
Two quick questions. You kind of talked about lessons learned with Wynn and Sons. So with the sewer manholes, can that be coordinated in advance on future road repaving? Because now we're going to have these little asphalt patches in our beautiful new paved streets.
We're hoping we're not gonna have that. We can just raise up the cover. There may be one or two that we have to cut some of the asphalt. But yeah, I was hoping the timing would work out with Loxahatchee and our contractor, and so timing was a problem for us getting that work done. The contract with the county had expired. They had just renewed it. Loxahatchee had some other projects going and couldn't really address that. And I wanted to make sure that we repaired the road. Anything that we do in there, if we have to modify any of the newer asphalt in there, it'll blend in and look fine. It's not going to be compromised.
Okay.
I'll make sure of that.
And then we've talked about chasing the water enough tonight, but I was curious if, say, we repave the roads and we still have major, ponding issues, whether they're swales or not. On El Portal, we installed a shocking amount of catch basins for that project, and it worked. There's no
It does.
flooding there anymore.
Yeah.
Does it ever get to the point, and when would staff consider we need to install a catch basin here, or does that not happen? Because, we did it on El Portal, right? Is there future potential for installing more catch basins throughout the community for flooding?
There is, but obviously it comes with a huge cost. There are some pockets now where we get substantial flooding, but there happens to be catch basins in that area. One of them is right out here on Tequesta Drive and Fiesta and Willow, and that sort of backs up because we dump into Jupiter's stormwater system. And so in our last catch basin, we have a weir where, you can't just dump the water in Jupiter, so it stockpiles on our end and it backs up and it flows over the weir. Other than Willow and Old Dixie, we had a big major problem in Old Dixie, and we found out that the major problem there was somebody at the CMAX plant was apparently either emptying their concrete trucks in the manhole. It's not our manhole, but they found a lot of concrete debris in the storm system, which was causing all that backup on Old Dixie. It's been much better the last couple of years, but being surrounded by water and being on top of water, and the water moving in every direction, north, south, east, and west, high tide, storm, there's no place for the water to go, and you can't get out your outfalls. You're going to have flooding. The good thing is, anytime we have a flood, I know I'm out there, Marjorie's out there, her team is out there, and we look at these areas. The manager mentioned one area that they're going to be fixing over on Yacht Club. That area
And that one's
flows.
an example, there is a catch basin just down the road, but the water's not flowing that way. The other
Yeah.
one on North Dover, same thing, there's a catch basin there, it's staring right at it, but they said that the water doesn't flow that way. So I
Yeah.
think that's the part of stormwater that Marjorie and David Tinoco and them, I think they really have their minds wrapped around it. I think it's the funding issue which we will be talking about come Friday. And if you guys have already seen your packet, you might even get a head start on it for the strategic planning, but I think we got a plan moving forward that we're gonna be able to address some of these things. I feel good about it, Jeff feels good about it, and so I think financial will be in a hopefully better place to be able to address some of those. And I don't think it's, from what I understand, and obviously we'll do some more digging, they're supposed to be prioritizing the projects. I don't think it's, major catch basin construction work. I think it's gonna be more along the lines of swales and right-of-ways, and which is cheaper, but there's still a cost that comes with it.
Swales will help tremendously. Yeah.
Thank you. All right, council, any other questions, comments?
Can I end with a fun one? So Lori was talking about, when I first got here in roads, and the council was talking about, my directive was to put plans in place like the color chart here. And so I go to Doug and I said, hey, let's put together a 5-year road plan. He's, oh, we've already done that. I said, all right, well, how much is it gonna cost to replace a road every 15 years? And he gave me a price of $210,000 The same plan now today is $710,000. So that was in 2019. So it's a huge difference, but I think what you're seeing, it feels like a slow process, but we're doing good things with roads. And I know I was talking with a Jupiter finance director. They put $750,000 toward roads a year. Not the big projects, because there's some county projects they got. Their budget's only $750,000. Ours is $710,000. So we're doing well. And I want to correct Doug. The roads do not come out of the capital improvement plan. We have that funded through the general fund, so we have that earmarked every year. So we're not going to be, figuring out what we're going to cut to pay for roads. We have a sustainable plan right now for roads. So just want to correct what Doug's statement.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any public comment? Yep, you come up to the podium. Can you come up to the podium and state your name and address?
Julie Beaumont, 94 Fairview East. I just wanted to revisit the swale and sidewalk question or thoughts right now, because I was thinking, it sounds like it's a matter of education. I don't think a lot of people realize that they have the right of way, or you all have the right of way to a certain point in the yards. And maybe if during the permitting for work in the yards or the driveway or something like that, there would be something written that was given to the people, when they come for the permitting, so that it educates them. Well, if you're gonna do this, you really need to realize about the swale. Excuse me, and maybe they would do that. And that could also educate them about that swale area that's part of Tequesta is also a viable work area for a sidewalk. These people don't have a clue about it, but if you slowly educate them about it, maybe even through the letter that you all put out, is it every month or something like that? I'm not sure. Yeah, smoke signals, thank you.
Weekly and quarterly, yeah.
If you just, made some nice little article about that. So, anyway.
Thank you.
Good, thank you.
Have we done messaging in any of our smoke signals?
Yes.
And we have the Friday weekly too. I don't know.
Yeah,
if
it's
we can-
gone out throughout the year, years. And also when folks come in and request permits, they're provided their information as well. Yeah, and I'm here almost 10 years with the village, which is shocking to me already. I don't know how it's 10 years, but we've been talking about sidewalks and right-of-way for 10 years. And I don't know if any of you were here, maybe Lori was here,
Not yet.
when we had about 40 people show up to a council meeting. And they were talking about roads and safety and speed humps and speed bumps and connectivity and sidewalk. And so probably 20 some odd years ago, when Mike Kuzo was here, they had a proposal to put sidewalks in the country club and fix the roads. And it was overwhelmingly, nobody wanted sidewalks in front of their property. And I have these conversations with residents, whether we're talking about adopt a tree, whether we're fixing sidewalk, whether we're fixing roads. And for the most part, people that I come across throughout the village, not just one area, they don't want they do not want sidewalk in front of their house because they feel like it's encroaching on their living space. So.
Okay, Mrs. Watkins?
Good evening. Pat Watkins, 167 River Drive. I just wanted to interject here. I think the residents also need to take a little responsibility here. My first year on council was 2003, so we're 22 years down the road, and we're finally seeing the paving, that we all wanted to see. And I walk primarily the Country Club and down Country Club Drive in the mornings, and there's just a lot of people who just water the streets. And if we could just put something in smoke signals and in the TECA newsletter, Laura, or wherever you can do it, that ask the residents to please be mindful. It's a little thing, the directional thing you're doing with your sprinklers. I think it would help preserve the roads. Thank you.
Yeah, I agree. Thank you. Any other public comment? No?
Yeah, a lot of folks put 360-degree irrigation heads out at the street, and they're watering the street, rather than a 180 head that stays on the property. That's something we could put out there too that we don't necessarily put out
Yeah,
there.
maybe we could
Education
just
on
do
irrigation.
some additional messaging. And
Water is like gold.
Yeah.
Okay, well, thank you, Doug, appreciate the update.
Thank you, Doug.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Okay, agenda item 3, discussion on council discretionary funds. Jeremy?
So as you guys know, in July, we passed a discretionary fund policy, that allocate, talked about the funds and the use of those funds. At the meeting in January, Mr. French suggested we discuss this again, brought this up for discussion about maybe increasing the fund. And so staff has done just kind of analysis of what other municipalities have for discretionary funds versus training funds for discussion. And if you have any specific questions here too, maybe if Mr. French wants to elaborate, then I know this was his item that he was wanting to discuss, but.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Council, open up for discussion.
Thank you. Yeah, a little background. I inherited a zero fund coming in. I didn't quite understand it, and then council was gracious enough to offer any funds to cover that if needed. For the next fiscal year, or this fiscal year, I misunderstood the discretionary funds, and then attending other events, legislative, local, or in Orlando for state legislative events, I kind of noticed that there might not be enough funds to cover all the things that can go on in a year. So just after speaking to some people and looking around, my idea was the language for the discretionary funds is fine. I think the last fiscal year or two is an outlier, but going forward, that each council member has an additional $2,500, the same as the mayor's budget set up for legislative items. And that would just give the opportunity for any council to attend anything legislative that could be Florida League of Cities, state, county, I guess even National League of Cities as well. And the idea for that is that we are a very productive and active council that attend many events. I see that at all the events. They're like, man, Youth Quest people are all over the place. And so I just wanted to keep that momentum going. For one example, and I may be different than everyone else up here, but tomorrow going to Palm Beach County Days, I don't really have the budget to fly out there and Uber and things like that, so I end up driving. To be honest with you, I'd rather fly. I don't really care to drive 12 hours and missing that difference of time with my family. So that may differ amongst the council in opinion, but that was one thing I saw that I would like that opportunity, that if I could fly to Tallahassee opposed to drive and save that a little bit of time, I can work at home or the extra couple hours with the family, that would be fantastic and keep the productivity going from my end as well. So with all that said, my suggestion is that all council members have the ability to use the additional $2,500, the same as the mayor, as needed for legislative only events.
Thoughts, council?
Can I ask you a question?
Sure.
If you inherited zero, what have you, when we restarted over in October,
Yeah.
and we were sent an updated discretionary fund report, so you're at zero right now,
Yes.
since October?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. I'm just thinking.
Good. No, please feel free. While we're here to ask questions.
So at this moment,
Well, remember, I inherited zero from the temporary fiscal year, the first fiscal year.
yeah, and it started
This
over in
is the second-
October,
Yeah.
so you received the full amount
Correct.
in October, as everyone up here did.
Yes.
Just be very blunt with you, I right now do not see a need to raise the funds, because for me, there's no data to support it. I have sat through multiple mayors. We used to have a mayor who ran to everything. And because she often had to hire help, like drivers and stuff, she did probably, I've never heard of that mayor going over budget. And then another mayor after that never had an issue with the budget. This current mayor doesn't have an issue budgeting, and I know Mayor Molly goes all over as well. So I'm struggling with the data to support why it needs to be increased when you are the first one who couldn't budget. Secondly, this is for everyone in council. For me personally, and I said this when Kyle Stone was up here when we talked about this before too. It was brought up by a former council member to increase the monthly, whatever you want to call it, pay. Stipend for council. Each month we get X amount of dollars for coming to meetings and doing work with residents, and I actually fully appreciate that because I do have a family, so yes, my time is paid for essentially, but we also do this hope we do this for most of us out of the kindness of our heart for our village. So I actually don't rely on that as my sole income. I'm not saying you do, but this goes to everybody. I actually have been known to take money from those monthly payments and put it towards something that I'm doing for the village, because I use that, because that's taxpayers' money as well. So I use that towards supporting me to help the village. So that's another reason why the data for me doesn't support increasing the discretionary fund when I could be pulling from the 7,000 and something that we get for the whole year as a stipend. So technically it's like 7,000 change plus the 3,000 discretionary. I mean, we're looking at like $9,000. I have no problem budgeting it. I haven't seen anybody have a problem budgeting it except for you, unfortunately.
No,
I
it's
don't
great.
know. I don't know what you were going to last year. I'm hoping it's all village related. For me, and this is for my other travel expenses, when I go to dance competitions or cheer competitions or a sports event, and sports events involved in school covers the sports, but if I choose to drive to Fort Lauderdale to watch the game, that's on me. And again, if I have to pay extra for food, that's on me. If I choose to take my other children to a cheer or dance competition, the studio doesn't pay for extra, that's on me. So again, I'm struggling with the data across the board of why we need to increase anything. Maybe it's just a matter of picking and choosing the priorities, how we go on trips, all of us, whether we're driving, carpooling with a staff member. I don't know about flying with the cost. I know Tampa has a cheaper airport. People have been known to drive to Tampa and then fly up to other places. I'm pretty sure there's creative ways to handle the budget a little bit more efficiently. And that's where I sit right now, unless I hear something different.
Yeah, if I could just respond to that, and I think those are all great points, and I agree, in your position, I would say the same thing. I'm not gonna be the same efficient as Vice Mayor Sartori and the mayor on those travel items. And I understand what you're saying, absolutely, there's other ways to save money, but I'm just being upfront ahead of time, knowing myself and my family, I'm just not gonna put that extra to go to Tampa or whatever it may be. So I understand your point, but I wanna make sure it fits in my family's setup, schedule, and time to go to these other events. And I don't want anything to take away from going to those events, because I know that the return on investment for them and the experience is phenomenal. So I agree, I understand everything you're saying, and please don't hesitate at all, because just in your position, I agree with that, what you're saying. Just going forward and thinking of next year, I would like to be ahead of that so I could be at every event possible.
And I fully understand if you want to fly. I mean, it could be a reason why you don't want to drive. Again, I totally understand that. But again, if it has to be a budgeted item, you know, picking and choosing the priorities. And there are some lunches I don't go to, or some things that are in the county I don't go to because they interfere with my work schedule or my kid's schedule, or maybe it's the cost of getting there. And again, those are all things I have to prioritize, and I look at the agendas for those things, and I mean, if there's something super pressing, I mean, I will make arrangements to go, but again, for me, it comes down to budgeting your personal life and, you know, prioritizing what we're doing as a team. And I'm pretty sure right now the team is very efficient. We always have someone there at everything, even in Tallahassee. So I mean, do we need all 5 at all times? Unless right now we don't have anything that's super pressing, and I think we can work better as a team to be more efficient with the budget that we are given.
I understand, thank you.
But I totally understand your choices of why you're trying to fit it around your family. Because
Thank you.
I'm in that boat too.
Thank you.
Vice Mayor, Councilmember Painter?
I mean, honestly, I'm fine with whatever council decides. I don't use my discretionary funds. Unfortunately, don't have much time to go to a lot of these events. I wish I did. So I personally never had a problem with not having the funds. In fact, I have a surplus probably not every year. I've only been up here for a year. But I understand everyone has different circumstances, so I want to try to make it work for everyone on council. But if it didn't change, perfectly fine. If y'all decide to, change the process or the amount or where it goes, or do whatever Kyle Stone was saying, that's fine by me.
I understand both sides of the comments that were made this evening by Ms. Brandon and Mr. French. I think that we could be at a ton more. And Tequesta could be better than we are now if we attended more and we learned more and we're more visible. You look back at some of the things that maybe didn't cost money but resulted in money. You know, I think we got our mobility grant because of the effort that our mayor has put into the TPA and things like that. But I think there's also opportunities that we could bring back more institutional knowledge by attending more. And if that means that there's going to be a little bit more a cost, I don't know if $2,500 is the magic number. But if we don't use it, it's money that's just put right back into the general fund, correct? It's not spent. And it's allocated. It's not like the money's sitting around. So I wouldn't, as long as it's used for what we've all agreed upon, for legislative lobbying, representing the village at an event or at a meeting or something, and if I would not be opposed to it. It doesn't mean you're gonna have to use it all. But I think I wouldn't object to it. I think 2,500 might be a little bit steep. And I don't know how much the mayor, who does a tremendous amount, and it goes a lot of places, but a lot of those things might be local, and maybe you do utilize that, I don't know. So maybe the 2,500 wouldn't be enough, but I think we could be a lot more, and we could do a lot more by taking advantage of some of the resources that are out there, and unfortunately, that does cost money. And if we want to continue to grow and prosper and flourish as a village, sometimes you have to, it costs a little bit of money to bring that knowledge back and that expertise back, so we can, it could be, maybe it's a staff issue or something, but I think from an elected official's position and what we try to do for the village, some of those things do cost money. And it's, and that's just the reality of it all. So I would be in favor of increasing it. Doesn't mean we have to spend it, but having the opportunity if something came up that really was important, instead of having to go to another council member to borrow those funds or say, hey, can you transfer money over? If it was there, then I would be in favor of that. But I don't know if the number's 2,500, Jason, but an increase I wouldn't object to, because knowing that we don't have to spend that amount of money.
Okay. I would say I'm not in favor of adding an additional fund. It's a privilege to serve up here. I think it's a privilege to even have the $3,000 to attend events. It's taxpayer money, and I think we need to be really sensitive to that. It's not, it's not there for, well, I'm gonna take a more expensive mode of transportation because it's more convenient. I mean, I totally respect and understand where you're coming from, because I, like you, I have a full-time job, a family, I balance everything as well. But it's a privilege to even have it. I don't think we're being good stewards of taxpayer dollars to add more. I have not overspent. I don't think even either account, I know for sure not my discretionary. I don't think the mayor one either, since I've been on council. There's always funds left over. So, and like I said, I do a lot. So I think it can be done with what we have. And I guess that's all I'll say about that. All right, any other discussion?
Can I just point out, I was actually surprised by the backup we were sent, how many towns don't have any of it.
I was really surprised by
That actually, just in general, that really actually surprised me.
Well, you think you could see as well who, it doesn't always correlate, but the attendance at some of these legislative events. You'll see the difference in the missing cities as well.
I think what I saw probably as a common theme was, very similar, like training fund. As far as the discretionary funds, there wasn't, as you can see, there wasn't many individual discretionary funds like we have, which gives you guys some of that. Multiple reasons, in reference when I talked to a couple of the managers was, a lot of the stuff that happened with Palm Beach County and even Riviera Beach, I believe, back in the day, with some of the discretionary fund uses being illegal. So, there are some cities that have a pot of discretionary funds that the council can use for projects that they vote on together and say, hey, we want to support this. I have talked to some of them. It does create some problems because then you start getting into favorites and who are you going to do? And so there's a lot of places that don't like those either. But I didn't see a lot of individual discretionary funds. It was more training funds, as you guys can see. So I would say it doesn't sound like there's a consensus to move forward. obviously, you know, and I'm not advocating to bring this back up if the numbers aren't there, but during the budget process is when I'd recommend any changes anyway, so I wouldn't recommend any budget amendment for this type of an item. And so, you know, during the budget process, if you guys want to have that discussion again or not, that's when I would recommend having that.
Okay, thank you. All right, any public comment?
Marcia.
Marcia Nielsen, 94 Beechwood Trail. I'm sure that we can all agree that Mr. Bradford, say, it's more than just travel. It is more than just travel. I'm sure that we'll all agree that Mr. Bradford's contribution to the Narrows, which depleted Mr. French's discretionary fund, was inappropriate. Not only did it deplete the fund, but it also was an exorbitant amount to go to one charity. And not that I'm saying there's anything wrong with the Narrows, but the Narrows is not specific to this village. It is for boaters and for everyone who has the intercoastal. So I think we can all agree on that. Now, you all got my 2 cents, and so you know that my bugaboo is contributions. Reviewing the manager's report submitted at the February council meeting regarding discretionary fund spending, it was noted by me that over $1,100 was donated to an organization called Better World. Furthermore, investigation yielded that this purchased 2 VIP tickets to a gala event at the Pelican Club. Now, I don't know what your thoughts are, but I really feel this is inappropriate. I'd like to go to the Pelican Club with my spouse on Village. And especially since my understanding of Better World is part of the 1909, who run incubators from West Palm Beach. So, I guess I'm really upset about this because this is my money, which is being spent just on one council's personal view of what they think is appropriate. And I, as a taxpayer, feel that's inappropriate. I really do feel that way. I have no problem with travel, but I have a problem with people wanting to fly there. That is inappropriate. You don't have to go to every single thing. You can, one person goes and reports. 2 people go and report. This is really, my recommendation is to get rid of this discretionary fund, especially the contributions, because frankly, maybe not all the taxpayers are looking, but I am, and I don't like it.
Thank you. Any other public comment? Okay, so council, I don't think there is consensus on this matter to move forward, so it dies tonight.
I agree. Thank you for the conversation.
Absolutely. Okay. All right, moving on. Agenda item 4, annual legal update to the council.
All right, good evening, council. So next Tuesday, March 11th, is the date of municipal elections in Palm Beach County. While we don't have an actual election, our charter does provide that the first regular council meeting following that date is when you reorganize. So that will be on the March, we meet March 13th, which is the first regular meeting. And since we don't have an issue this year in terms of having to wait for election results to be certified and that sort of thing, you'll be able to reorganize, which for us means appointing, the 5 of you appointing a mayor and a vice mayor. As you know, we do this every year, and every year I try and remind, there's procedurally 2 paths you can take. Somebody can make a motion to appoint one of you to be mayor, and then, like any other motion, a motion has to be seconded. If that motion is seconded, that motion is handled individually. If it passes, then you've reorganized in that fashion. The alternative process is to make a nomination. And the difference is that a nomination does not require a second. The person being nominated needs to accept the nomination, but before you vote on it, you can have other nominations. So you could have, I nominate this person, okay, I nominate that person, okay. I nominate you could have you could have 5 different nominations, I suppose. And then those get voted on in the order that they were made. So it's at the end of the day, it gets you to the same place, but there's a slightly different process. I just always want to remind you that the different ways to do it. There's neither way's more correct or incorrect than the other. There's just 2 different ways of doing it, and the choice is the person who either makes the motion or makes the nomination. And I know you hear this from me every year, but it's a good reminder, because your reorganization is important. It will set the mayor and the vice mayor for this council for the next year. These are annual appointments. So, and that's all in the charter. Section 2.06 of the charter provides for that process. In addition to that, and I will take my cues from the council, I have provided you my annual memo with topics that include council manager's form of government, how the council interacts or by charter is supposed to interact with the manager versus the department heads, sunshine law, public records, ethics, quasi-judicial hearings, all of those things. I did report at your last council meeting, as you'll remember, that one of the things in the memo is the annual financial disclosure. Based on the current pending litigation, it's still a Form 1 scenario this year. It does not, Form 6 is still held in abeyance with the federal court's injunction. And that Form 1 is same as last year. It's filed electronically these days. You get no more paper and pen. You have to go on the website, log in. Everybody should have an account or credentials at this point. It's pretty user-friendly. Once you are logged in, it leads you where you need to go, and you just have to kind of fill in the blanks. So beyond those things, I'm happy to spend as much time as you would like me this evening going over the sunshine law and public records stuff, the gifts and voting conflicts and those ethical topics. As I said, I provided my memo in the alternative if you prefer to not listen to me talk about it all and simply review it and ask questions if you have them. Again, I'll take my cues from the council how you would like me to proceed tonight. Other than the financial disclosure issue that is pending, really the law hasn't changed. Certainly not on sunshine law or the ethical considerations that continue to apply to you. Every year there seems to be 1 or 2 tweaks to the public records laws in terms of new exemptions and things like that. This year I know at the Florida League of Cities there was a request by the Municipal Clerks Association to make some of their personal information confidential, just like municipal attorneys were granted that exception. I guess 2 years ago now. At any rate, how would you like me to proceed this evening? If you'd like to have verbal presentation, I'm happy to proceed. If tell me whatever you would like.
Okay, thank you. Council, any comments, questions for Keith? Or other discussion?
I've read it. I don't have any personal questions, but I'm happy if you guys want Keith to go through it.
I personally obviously have seen it, heard it. I love the refreshers because I feel a lot of people over the years can just kind of get comfy and off track. So it's always good to get even that ethics training once a year just to kind of refresh it. Now if we get the driving test to do that, that'd be great in general. But I'm going to leave it up to anyone else if they feel like they just want a refresher. If they didn't get a chance to read through it while you're sitting here, I mean, you're here, we're here. So I'm gonna leave it up to the rest of you.
I don't have any specific questions, and I think I did the ethics refresher twice accidentally this year.
There you go.
You were very ethical.
I have no questions or issues with
Maybe it might be a good refresher, because some of us are gonna be in Tallahassee this week. I know there's specific lobbyist rules with gifts, and it's highlighted in here. Anything outside of the gift thing that we should be reminded of when it comes to lobbyists?
As
or
long as you're,
vendors?
as long as, I mean, the sunshine law would apply if there was more than one of you involved in a discussion, and the discussion foreseeably could be a topic that would land back here for you to have action on, that would be an issue. You know, the gift law is very important. I mean, to keep it simple, don't take any gifts from any lobbyists. And, you know, there are technically low dollar value thresholds that are cumulative on an annual basis, like $100. So that, you know, basically, if you got a lapel pin or a koozie or something, that's fine. But, you know, the good advice is just avoid gifts from lobbyists. And any of your good lobbyists that work for us and that are up there, that everyone's aware of that. I'm not aware of examples recently of lobbyists trying to pepper local elected officials with inappropriate gifts. I'm not aware of it happening. But it is the law, and you definitely want to keep that in mind. And again, if by chance there was more than one of you on having a conversation with the lobbyist, and it's about something that you think might land back here, even if there was a technical no violation because one of you did not say a word or respond to any part of the discussion and just listened, there's optics on that. If anybody was to observe that, you don't want to have to defend yourself and explain and have people shake their heads and not believe you. So those would be the two most important things to keep in mind in terms of meeting with your lobbyist and having those kind of, or you know, legislators or anybody else. So.
Thank you. Yeah, just a good reminder, not just for being up in Tallahassee, but really the whole session, right? Kind of, that's when we usually see and talk to lobbyists the most, is during session, so.
Quick question, do lunches count as gifts?
Yes, but, and the statute is specific to meals. So if there's a reciprocal, like if somebody takes you to lunch, and within the next 90 days after that, you take them to lunch, it's a
Cancels
wash. So you have time to pay it back that way. But yes, otherwise, it would be considered a gift.
Okay, thank you. All right, any other council comments, questions? Okay, any public comment? All right, with that, can I get a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
I don't know how he does it with the shirt, with the polo shirt.
So,